He said, in almost 10 years I've known you, you have not changed. That was, I believe, the first light bulb moment. That was when I also realized that my good was never going to be enough. There was no sacrifices I was going to make in this marriage that would ever be good enough. I think at that point, everything turned around for me. Today, I will be talking on how I broke free. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for, joining me on this journey. If you haven't stumbled on my channel before and this is your first time, join me as I am basically speaking about how I married a Christian narcissist and, the different things that I experienced. I'm going into some level of detail. And the purpose of me sharing my journey is to really bring that awareness of domestic abuse that actually takes place in the church. I'm obviously speaking from experience, and I'm unfolding this so that I can bring that awareness for people who are entering into relationships, can actually have some solid signs and be able to identify the traits that do come and present itself very early on in the relationship. Today, I will be talking on how I broke free, how I got out of this narcissistic marriage. I've already spoken a bit about my journey so far. I spoke about the initial attraction, what actually attracted me to this man I married. I've spoken about the red flags, which is what I want to keep harkening on about. I've also spoken about the manipulative tactics that were used to keep me in the cycle of abuse, which is known as the trauma bond phase, which is why many women or men, specifically my content is targeted at women because obviously I'm a woman who has experienced this and I'm speaking from my experience. And I've spoken about the effects on my mental health. And this is the reason why I'm so moved. God has led me here to share this journey, but I'm really passionate about bringing this awareness because the effects of domestic abuse, specifically narcissistic abuse, has on one's mental health is demoralizing, it's deteriorating. Unfortunately, it's the worst thing ever and it can lead to so many things. The worst case, which is very common, is suicide. So, this is not something we can be joking about, and this is something that unfortunately is happening and it's quite rampant in the church. I get so many messages since I've been sharing my journey, so many messages of women who are also experiencing the same thing, if not worse. And it breaks my heart because I thought I was alone. I thought it was only myself that was in this situation, but sadly, it is more common than we think. And I'm here to let you know that you're not alone if you're in this situation. And, there is a way out. And I'm not trying to tell anyone to leave their marriage, but specifically, I'm here to share my journey. And so today, as I said, I'm talking about how I broke free. So if you have been following, if you haven't seen my previous videos, do click the link above where you could see some videos in the past, because I will be, sometimes touching on the things I've spoken about very briefly so I don't keep repeating myself. So to catch up on what I've spoken about so far, do check the videos. I will click the link above. So today I'm talking about how I broke free. I even remember there's a comment, if I could put that comment on this video right now. One of the comments I received was, "My dear, how did you escape?" Like literally, how did I escape? And I'm sure a lot of people want to know that because trust me, being in an abusive marriage can definitely destroy you, and not only you, your children. I suffered for 10 good years. I kept silent. I was trying to do my best to, stand by this man who I thought would change. I thought what I was seeing was just a phase. I actually did not realize it was abnormal. And I want everyone to understand that there are marriages that of course have its ups and downs, but we need to recognize when it's abnormal. We need to recognize when this is abuse. And this type of abuse can lead to depression. It can lead to suicide. It can destroy a generation. There's so much talks about, single parents cause this and single parents cause that. And, when you've kind of come from a single parent background, you feel like, you have to stay in these sorts of situations because you do not want to repeat history. But I'm here to tell you that if I stayed, only God knows. The story is still unfolding. My journey is still unfolding. But the destruction that it would have had upon my children, the destruction it's had so far, and what I'm working on, trying by God's grace and the grace of God himself to, unlearn the toxic traits that my children saw and picked up. It's not worth it. It's not worth staying in such a situation, because not only are you destroying yourself, you're destroying the innocent children if there are children in the mix. So how did I break free? There was a few things that kind of was the light bulb effect for me. One in particular I would never forget. I think it was almost 10 years in the marriage, and of course I've said a few of the events that I've experienced. There's been so much, I can't share it all. Part of what I had to do in the marriage was really comply to the wishes that were not something that I had wanted. I had to really sacrifice a lot in order to remain sane, in order to keep the peace. In order to keep the peace, I pretty much had to become a shadow of myself. I had to walk on eggshells. I had to, just do what he wanted. And I lost myself in the process. And I knew that I wasn't happy, but I just wanted to keep the marriage. I did not want to let go of my marriage. I wanted to stay married regardless of what effects it was having on my mental health and what effects it was having on the children. I was pretty much idolizing my marriage. Marriage became my idol, and I will talk about that in a future video. So the light bulb effect was a time when I remember we were almost 10 years in, and I was at the point where I think I was really at breaking point. I don't know what the phases of depression look like, but I pretty much believe I was actually in at least phase 1 of depression. I spoke about that in my last video, and I remember a statement he made. This man said to me that in all the years he has known me, I have not changed. I would say it was 10 years because it was almost 10 years. He said, in almost 10 years, I've known you aggressively, by the way. He made this statement, the man I married made this statement that you have not changed. That was, I believe, the first light bulb moment, because I knew how many hoops I had jumped. I knew how I had let go of friends, stopped going to see my family as much as I would love to, hindered my children from seeing them based on his request and demand that I must not allow my children to see my family. This is my mum, my sisters, my brothers. He never attended any of my family functions. Anything that was pertaining to my family, count him out. He was never there. And, I mentioned in the last video, Christmases, birthdays, I would have to just not invite my family, my sisters who have children, my nephews, my nieces, my children's cousins were unable to attend my children's celebrations, any celebrations that we had, for years, they were unable to attend. These were the sacrifices I made in order to keep the peace of the marriage. There were so many times where I could not pick up my mom's phone call. I could not pick up my dad's phone call, or, freely pick up my siblings, my sister's phone calls whenever he was nearby. This is all part of me walking on eggshells because I knew what effect it would have on him. I knew how much he disliked them. In fact, I would say he hated them. I knew what I was observing. There was so much manipulation over myself and over the children. Him also, the man I married, planting seeds of hatred into the lives of my children, the hearts of my children against my extended family, my mom, my siblings. And I was just watching all of this happen. I was just keeping quiet. I was searching for help. I was seeking for help. After all that I had gone through, you're saying that I've not changed? That was like a slap, a punch, a kick in the face. That was when I also realized that my good was never going to be enough. There was no sacrifices I was going to make in this marriage that would ever be good enough. That was the major one. And I think at that point, everything turned around for me. Everything was like, why have I done this? why have I remained in this situation for so long when this man doesn't even care? This man that I married doesn't even appreciate the pain I'm having to endure just to make peace. What is the point? Like, it was like, why have I done this? And I just could recollect all the trauma I had experienced in the marriage. I just recollected everything. And it was like, I can't do this. Enough is enough. I am not going to do this anymore. You have said I have not changed. I'm the same person you married 10 years ago. And why have I suffered? I've suffered in vain, That was like the ding-a-ding-a-ding ring, light bulb effect that you've just been killing yourself. In fact, you've been dying a slow death and this guy doesn't even care, And so at that point, I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to do me. That was the moment I realized I'm going to make myself happy. I'm going to put myself first. I am no longer going to kill myself to please you because you clearly do not see all I've done. You clearly have not considered the sacrifices I have put in to this marriage. And I have changed drastically. And you have turned around and said, I've not changed. Wow. Like I said, it was a slap in the face. So that was one of the big moments. So many things happened. And like I said, I can't unfold them all. But after that experience, I began to find myself slowly. I was still in the marriage, still stuck in a narcissistic marriage, still stuck under the siege of abuse. There was so much silent treatment going on. And I guess, like I said, from that moment, I started to realize that this man is not a man of God. It's like there was some kind of scales that had been removed from my eyes at that point. At that point, I was still completely blind because it took me finally walking away to really getting so much more revelations. It's like God just opened my eyes on another level. But from that moment, it's like the scales began to drop slowly from my eyes. And I started to see the monster that I had married. I started to see this man that I thought I had married, that I thought was a man of God, this man that presented himself to be a man of God, a man after God's heart. I started to see him for who he truly was. At this point, I had not even realized he was a narcissist, but I just started to see it just wasn't adding up from that moment forward. And a series of events took place, and it was like, this is going to kill me and my children if I remain. So essentially, that was the moment that led to me breaking free. And what is crucial to know in this process is that my support system came in handy. As much as I was isolated from my family, from friends, as much as I was even pushing them away in order to keep the peace of my marriage, my loved ones were ready and available the moment I kind of was like, guys, I need your help. And I want you all to understand that when you're in an abusive relationship, you need to recognize when it's abuse and when it's not abuse. And that's the whole reason why I'm sharing my journey. You need to realize that when it's abuse, you can't stay silent. Many women have died in these marriages, in these relationships, all because they kept quiet. Keeping quiet is one day gonna kill you. If you're dealing with a man who is physically abusive, emotionally abusive, constantly gaslighting you, constantly belittling you, putting you down, giving you the silent treatment, and then presents himself as a man of God, that is a Christian narcissist. I'm telling you that. And you need to speak up. You need to speak up. I eventually started to speak up. I spoke out, and essentially that was the moment things began to shift. That was how I broke free. I don't want this video to drag on for too long because I think I've hopefully given you guys some ideas to understand, or I've given you enough to understand how I broke free. I might have to extend this video on another video to speak more on how I broke free. There's always going to be a light bulb moment. You're going to need to have that light bulb moment. Nobody else can get you out of an abusive relationship. You have to find it out for yourself. But if you're aware of certain signs and, traits to look out for, it'll be a lot easier for you to look out for it. Not like me that spent 10 good years, and everyone else could see it. Most of the cases in such situations, everyone else will see the abuse except you. So it's better that you recognize these signs very clearly so that you're not the last person to see it. But you need to speak out. And the moment I started to speak out, my deliverance came. I've had so many people reach out to me and say they were praying for me. People that I don't even know were saying that they were praying for me from a distance because they could see the abuse that I was in just from a distance. From a distance. And I believe that the prayers of the saints, I believe that the prayers that I cried in my closet, I cried and I prayed. I didn't pray to break out of the marriage. I just prayed for God to come to my rescue. And he did. And that was how I broke free. I spoke out. I had a light bulb effect. And I recognized that this is not the kind of marriage that glorifies God. And this type of marriage is going to destroy my own children's sense of a godly marriage. They will believe that this is what a godly marriage looks like, and this is the most hypocritical marriage or hypocritical thing you could ever do. Be something that you're not and teach your children something that is otherwise. This is how atheists are created, because you're preaching Christ and you're living a complete different life. This man I married would go out and preach the gospel on the streets, but in the home, you're a completely different person. And ministry starts in the home first. I'm going to end this video now. Thank you guys once again for watching. I will continue to talk more about my journey. I will share more about, maybe I'll go into a bit more detail of how I broke free, like literally the details. But I think this is hopefully enough for you to kind of understand how or what to do, hopefully, but I'll give more details. I'll also talk about the support system in a lot more detail. They came in such hand for me, and I'm going to definitely go into the lessons I've learned. I've learned so much lessons, not just about the man I married. In fact, the least of my lessons is the man I married, but what have I learned about myself? What did I realize about myself? Why did I remain in such a situation? Why was I an easy target? What was wrong with me? Why was I so stupid? Why did I not realize what I was in? Why did I ignore the signs? These are things that I'm going to share with you all and help you to understand, these are the things that you need to look and reflect and examine in yourself so that you don't even find yourself prey to these sort of predators. The key thing is I want this awareness of what narcissistic abuse looks like. And especially, I want people to realize that this is common in the church more than you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next one. Bye.